What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Win-Win Effect podcast, presented by WINJECT Studios. I am your host, Chris Ross, and if you're new to us, welcome. Really excited and blessed to have you here for the first time. The outcome that we're after in each episode of this show is to introduce you to as many people as I cross paths with to inspire and help you, our listeners, to manifest anything you want out of life. How I go about achieving this is one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome, that's success. Our featured guest for today's episode is Thomas Kim. He is an entrepreneur, investor with a focus on real estate and small businesses with high growth strategies. With an MBA and a BS in engineering behind him, this Chi-Town native saw a huge gap in motor vehicle detailing and the car wash industry. For those who are unaware, the car wash industry is very unorganized and there are very few companies controlling the car wash industry. In the last decade, more than 70% of car owners started using car wash facilities instead of washing cars at their home premises. This industry is so big that 8 million vehicles are washed every day at car washes. Let me ask you a question. What do you think the deciding factor is in one person going back to the same car wash after washing their car at that facility? If you said customer's experience, then you would understand why I had to have this guy on the show. He is the founder and CEO of Everclean, a modern branded car wash, and his social mission is to enrich lives through opportunity and holistic mentorship. Before I kick this up a couple notches and dive right in, stand by for a quick message, and I'll see you on the other side.
This podcast is part of the WINJECT Studios network, where podcasters come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how to apply to join the network, go to www.winject.com. That's WINJECT.com. If you're ready to make a difference through podcasting, then we're ready to see you there.
Mr. Thomas Kim, ladies and gentlemen, introducing to the world, my friend. What's going on, dude? You all right?
Doing great, Chris. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this, not just because on who you are individually as a person and what you've done, obviously in business, but you just have a natural ability to be able to put a smile on someone's face when you have a conversation with you. And I haven't even met you in person just yet. So it's probably amplified maybe like 10x, 20x. Have you ever had that kind of a compliment or someone said that to you before?
I've gotten that a little bit here and there, but I mean, Chris, you have a level of energy, man. It's hard not to have yours rub off on me. So there's some reciprocation going here too.
Yeah, there's a lot of recycling of energy, and both of us being conscious of that, I think this is going to really help the listeners. But thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having us and just being willing to listen to our story and learn about us a little bit.
100%. There's, obviously you owning what you own and the reason why behind what you do for a living. Kind of kick this off and give the listeners a little bit more context on who you are and what you're about. Especially with your wife, you're a family man, things that you've done over the years, a lot of mentorship, and a lot of being under the tutelage of the right people around you. But I know that what you own, obviously the car wash and the branding of the school, technically kind of memberships and really taking it, in my opinion, doing something innovative and doing something a little different than normal people would actually see when it comes to car washes as in general. But for the most part, like how did you get here, Thomas?
Yeah, there's definitely a story behind Everclean. So I'm a Chicago guy, born and raised, son of Korean immigrants, and I had a front row seat, really, to just a scrappy, figure it out approach to life. Mm-hmm. Don't know the rules here, how things work, don't know the language, and I just watched my parents figure it out. My dad left when I was 7 years old. And I know that had a big impact on me. But I actually never felt the void of that growing up because I just always had older men that I respected step into my life, take me under their wing for reasons I couldn't understand. And invest in me. And that's been the story of my life, which only later I realized is not common. But to this day, I have a lot of older men who would consider me their adopted Korean son. Fast forwarding career-wise, I was an engineer, worked at Caterpillar designing construction equipment. And that really set me off on this trajectory of doing manufacturing strategy in factories. And at the same time, that was kind of my daytime thing. At nights, I was working with youth and mentoring youth at my church. And I always had this heart for, I loved business. I loved the competitive drive of creating some value in the world. And then I loved mentoring people. So I did that, both of those things for a while. And then I started getting into real estate development. I had some friends from elementary school that we were investing some money together. And eventually I joined them and started doing real estate development, multifamily rehab in the north side of Chicago. Right time, right place, right age. When the market crashed, we were able to take advantage of that. And as I move forward, I look for, well, what can I do after that? And that's when I saw an opportunity in the car wash space and started Everclean.
The reason why I bring that up, because I wanted the listeners to hear it come out of your mouth rather than me kind of framing it this way, because you've done so much. And what I do love about your story in particular, that we're both engineers and now we're here doing business stuff. But with a lot of, because the way the engineers think, and for those who aren't engineer, the listeners, we look at things completely different than a normal person. We look at things and figuring out, okay, what's wrong with it and how do we fix it? And then we reverse engineer it and go backwards. And I built my businesses that way, Thomas. And we've had a previous conversation about this, where I'm looking at, I see an opportunity faster than a lot of other people, because that's just the way my mind works. And I'm seeing how can I improve this? And I think that's something that that car wash industry, and you leaning into that, you saw a huge gap and an opportunity there. I love that.
Absolutely. I cannot, Chris, walk down the street without picking apart why the light pole spacing is what it is. How did this neighbor get this fence that's not in compliance? Like, I just, that's all going on in my head. But yeah, when I hit the car wash industry, first I laughed about it because I had just finished watching Breaking Bad, and I just couldn't take it seriously at first, right? And the idea of me being at a cocktail party, I wash cars. What do you
really do, sir? What do you really do for a living?
and so, but I looked at this industry and I saw the average driver can't name a single brand. And so here you've got 276 million vehicles in the country, and most people don't have a single name that they associate with that. And to me, the industry was up for grabs. And the experience feels like you're going back in time. It could be 1970, and the way it looks and smells and feels. And when I started digging into that, I realized, my goodness, forget the one car wash. There's a whole industry opportunity here that we can transform the experiences of something that's so common and everyone needs. And that's why we went after it.
Right. I love that you said experience, because it is an experience. From the companies the best companies I've ever been around, Thomas, look at it as an experience rather than looking at it as a business. Touch on that if you can.
We talk about, and this is a value that we unashamedly stole from Zappos. We want the customer, when they come in, to physically move their mouth and go, wow. Yeah. We don't just want them to be impressed. We specifically are looking for that word, and we want them to say it. And our guys have tons of stories. So if we're not blowing your mind when you come through here, we're not hitting the mark. That's our bar. And so we designed the entire site around the team member customer interaction. A lot of car washes, you go and you don't even know if someone's working on site.
Yeah.
You know, or you pull up and then they kind of run out of the back office in a t-shirt and kind of like disheveled, and they're like, you know,
with a cigarette in their mouth. What's up, man? How's it going? You know,
yeah,
I just picture a raspy voice, like, what's going on?
Absolutely. So you know, our approach is we got guys and they're in collars, they're clean. You come up, they're waiting for you.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Everclean. May I offer you a complimentary air freshener? That's the first line. What? Normally we got a chart, and really that's the first. You don't need to know anything else about me or what I'm buying. And they say sure, and then we're offering them what, you know. Here are a couple different scents. Which one do you like? And from the beginning, we're engaging a sense that normally car washes aren't focused on. Want you to smell something because that's a very powerful experience. So really, from the start all the way to the end, we try to target the senses that you would experience: visual, smell.
What's number one? What's number one?
Number one scent?
Yes, I'm just curious.
Pina colada.
Is it? Okay,
popular.
that was just for the listeners, and I know this is probably going to be like, why does Chris know so much about car washes? And he's asking these questions. That was my first job. Well, technically job when I got of age, when I was legal age, when me being able to work. But I did a lot of, you know, washed cars my whole life. I cut grass. I raked leaves. I had my own type of, I don't know, like lawn care type of business in a cul-de-sac. And, you know, obviously we've talked about that before. And then I took over a neighborhood and I started buying equipment and people started cutting grass for me because it was my territory. And then I was getting commissions from that. And I built a business before I even got a job. My first job was a car wash. And Mike Jackson, and if you're listening to this, is one of my best friend from elementary school. Like when you meet someone, like when you become best friends with someone that young, it's like you make fun of somebody or something like that, or something happens, you're like, we're best friends. And then he was the person that got me the job because he lived right next to the car wash. Anyways, make a long story short, that was my first job. It was hot as hell in Charleston. And I got a lot of, in the rotation of getting a lot of tips for being in a car wash. When people would come up, I knew how to drive, you know, a stick shift. A lot of people back then knew how to drive a stick. So I would get in there, but the way I looked at it, and I looked at it this way, because I've come from cutting grass and it's all about the relationship. I've always been a relationship type of guy and making people feel a certain way. When you make people feel a certain way, they're more open to giving you tips, especially if you're working for commissions or something of that nature. I would actually have conversations with people who would hop out the car. I'm like, hey, what scent? And this is similar to what you just talked about. Why are you getting your car wash? Is it a normal car wash? How typically do you normally would wash your car? Like, are you going on a date? And they talked about their date. Okay, where'd you meet her? This and this. And I would develop that relationship as I'm going through, and they would always come back and ask for me. Always. So go ahead. I love this. And the pina colada was one of my favorite ones.
It's the kind of job where when you're working, like you see the hustlers really fast.
Oh yeah.
So I could totally picture you at that car wash, Chris, hustling and just working and really hustling, not only physically, but even like mentally, conversationally, right? You're engaging with customers, and that's really what we look for in our guys, because car washing, people get car washes, to protect your car from the rust and things like that. But aside from that, people get car washes to feel good. They feel good about their car. It's more like going to the barber or the hairstylist
100%.
And pampering yourself.
100%.
So we try to create that experience, right? What does a barber do when you're cutting your hair? He talks to you.
How's the conversation? It's barbershop conversations. They made a movie about it from Chi-Town, right? It's a conversation. Absolutely. It's a totally different like me being Italian. I grew up in South Carolina, which was, the barbershop was like a church.
Yeah.
So I would go to the barbershop, and I had one barber. His name is Roddy. He passed away years ago. I remember cutting. I don't have any hair now, but I would go there every Friday, even if I didn't have to get a haircut. I would go there with my grandfather, and the conversations that would happen in a barbershop that I experienced when I was that young, it transformed my life.
Yeah.
It laid the foundation on just being really outspoken and quick one-liners. I was always good at one-liners, and I learned that from a young experience as just being in a barbershop. But you're 100% correct. They're building that relationship with you Because there's how many other barbershops out there in the world, but it's a sense of community as well.
And as businesses, here's the challenge I think before us. The consumers want a world-class brand. They want the efficiency and the excellence, the consistency of a world-class company, but they want the relationship of a small town business.
Right.
And so how do you bring the two together to a consumer?
Mm-hmm. I like that you said that. And I know this conversation is going to go a little different than a lot of other maybe interviews that you've been on, because I love this about in a different reason. When I just mentioned to you on Friday, I went and stayed at the Four Seasons for my own personal reasons. Why do you think I stayed at the Four Seasons?
I think you knew what you needed, and you knew what was important to you, and you knew what would meet that need. And Four Seasons has a level of luxury and pampering that you could expect and count on when you go there.
Mm-hmm. I stayed at a Four Seasons, goodness gracious, in Vegas. I think this is years, man. It feels like a lifetime ago. I feel like I don't even know how old I was at the time. I know I was in education. I was in a recruitment type of thing and education, and I was speaking on stage, and I was in Vegas. I was sitting outside, and this is back in the day when I used to smoke cigarettes. I don't do it anymore, but don't judge me for those that don't do smoke. But I was smoking a cigarette sitting outside, and of course you're in Vegas. You might be a little hungover or whatever that might be. Yeah. So I'm sitting outside, and I watched a bus. It's during like March Madness time, okay? And the big tournaments are going on, and I was leaving that day to go into the airport. That's why I was sitting outside. And I was sitting outside just smoking a cigarette and watching. I watched a bus pull up, and I can't remember what college it was. But the concierge and the people in the baggage, the guys, they were walked, and they treated them like they were like NBA stars, not college. Wouldn't you know it? The next bus that pulled up was a bus full of nuns. I don't know if they were having a nun like convention or whatnot in Vegas. They treated them, if not even better than they treated the basketball players. What does that say overall, do you think?
They just value people and the customer, and
how they felt.
Yeah.
I just want to have them increase their experience so much that it makes them want to come back. There's a couple different, I guess in London, now that I'm in London, there's a couple different kind of chains. And I stayed at this one hotel recently. I think it was about maybe a year and a half ago. I wouldn't say recently. And they were so good at customer service. If I would have probably said, I need XYZ, they would have made it happen.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, did this used to be a Four Seasons at all? They're like, oh, it's funny that you say that. 5 years ago, that's all the training that we've sent them to the Four Seasons. And I was like, ha. That means something. And I pay attention. And when I was there, I was like, when I ever own a business, and I will own a business one day, I'm going to build the business around being customer centric first, and everything else to come from there. Everything else.
Since we're talking hotels, I have to share what was kind of a bedrock experience to us formulating this customer service focus. I'm at a boutique hotel in Taipei, Taiwan. I check into the hotel. I leave for the very first time, and the bellman says, "Hello, Mr. Kim." Okay, so he knew my name right away. The following morning, I go in to get breakfast, sit down, and I try to go get some papaya. They're all out. And then I asked them, could I have some papaya? And then also, by any chance, do you have any skim milk? Trying to be healthy, and I go sit down. They come and they bring me a massive plate of papaya, completely cut fresh.
Right.
And then they say, I'm sorry, Mr. Kim, we don't have any skim milk, but my colleague is on his way to the store. He'll be right back. Comes back. I don't know, this guy took some petty cash, went and brought it back. I'm blown away. Following morning, go to have breakfast, papaya and skim milk ready for me. Blown away. How much time and how much cost was that? If that milk was $2, maybe a few minutes, but man, they won me as a customer for life.
Right. And how long has it been since that time?
That's been 7 years.
7 years, and you're having a conversation about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Think about that. And this goes out to the listeners that people do own a business, or they haven't even gotten a chance to own a business yet. That's how you start. You provide your customers with such a high level of customer service and a personal feel to it that it changes the way that they look at that industry. And that's the first one I think of. Love this.
And they'll never forget you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make them feel that way. When they got to get a car wash, they'll never forget you. Our goal is to own that space in people's mind. When they think car washing, right? That all they think about is Everclean.
Okay, let's peel back the layers of that real quick. Yeah. And I think just maybe another reason why you're able to take it to another level on top of just even being community centric and customer centric. The reason why I say community and ties into customers, because you have to know the community to be able to adapt to increase the experience of the customers, right? Turning them into a lifelong customer. So absolutely. On top of that, you have to develop your people, and that's something you really do well of. You develop your staff, you develop the people within, and giving them the opportunity to grow and giving them more knowledge. You have some people that make you sign up and they get to assistant manager level and those types of managers pretty quickly, but you're dumping in a lot of mentoring and a lot of value there that most companies are overlooking because of time and lack of time. So talk about that if you can. I think that stems from your mentorship and you being underneath the wing of so many great people around you.
Yeah. When I first got into this space, I started to notice that a lot of the guys who were working there were of a particular background, usually part-time job hoppers, just working odds and ends, hourly jobs so they can pay for their gas and their cell phone bill. And most of these guys that I saw were lacking the motivation and really a passion for what they were doing.
Okay.
So I started taking them out for one-on-ones, which is a big deal for us in our practices. And I'm going to take you out for lunch, and I'm just going to have a conversation with you. I want to find out about your life. I want to know, what do you like to do? What are you excited about? What gets you going? What are you good at? What are you not good at? And I want to start talking about, where do you want to head? We started doing that, and my goodness, our guys started coming to life. Their level of engagement. Then we made a party out of it, and we do it every 2 months. It used to be every month, and then we used to do it in my house. All the locations would come over. We'd have dinner, throw a big party, and I'm going to give a talk about one of our core values, and I'd share the vision of where we're heading. And do you want to join it? I'm telling you, that following day, we used to do that Sunday nights. On Monday morning, number of guys who would quit all their other jobs, and come full time with us because they're ready to go. That really has grown into a training and development program that we call the Master Plan. And guys come in, they start at minimum wage, and they work their way up in all the different competencies. And within 12 to 18 months, they become managers, earning salary, 98% medical coverage, 401k, opening their own site with a team that they've hired, recruited, and trained themselves. And that's what we get most excited about, is every location that opens for us. It's not just a new car wash location that's going to generate more money. It's actually, behind that, it's a life that's been transformed, and someone whose talent has been unlocked. And now they're really going hard trying to grow into a leader.
And you wouldn't be able to unlock that potential unless you took the extra time and took them for that one-on-one and asked the diagnostic questions that really dug into their story. Most people in that type of industry, yes, you're right. They are looking to pay their cell phone bill or pay for gas and look for a side job. They don't look at a car wash as a place where they can really flourish and grow, because you started a call off mentioning in the car wash space in that industry, you can't name 5 biggest ones. I can't.
Yeah.
I could probably do it in Charleston, but I can't do it as in nationwide in the United States. I can't. So when they're saying that name, they're, like Everclean, that's going to mean something in the next couple of years, big time. I mean, of already the success you've had, and every single location, there's a story from that came from that special relationship that you've had with that one-on-one, and showing them that there's a bigger opportunity here. You just have to take a step back and realize what your true potential is. Like, what do you really want to do with your life? Are you viewing this as a stepping stone and getting you to where you really want to go? Or can you even visualize those steps?
Yeah. And that's what we find. A lot of those conversations they've never had before.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't been mentored before. And people haven't actually looked at them. And so I really think it's this combination of unlocking motivation, but then also giving a pathway. Yeah. So our training program, when guys start day one, we print out this sheet. It says it's the master plan, everything you need to be awesome on one page. And we show every competency, the stages you need to go through, and we tell them after orientation, the pace with which you grow is completely up to you.
I like that.
All of your raises and your promotions are right here. We're transparent. So basically, we've given them a track and said, run on this as fast as you want to. Mm-hmm. And it's the guys who are, they can hustle. They're good with people. They're street smart, right? Mm-hmm. If you've got those three things, you will really excel here. And then there are guys that don't, and that's okay too. They're just not ready. And some guys come in and they're just not ready to work on that. And
I like that. They're not ready. A lot of people, when they say they're not built like that, they're just always going to be working for someone else. I like that you said they're not ready. It gives them an opportunity to grow into that. I love that. Keep going. Love it.
I hope they come back. Yes. And sometimes we let people go. There's someone we let go last week. Let go of. He was crying, and he said, "I love Everclean. It was this. I love this place." And we said, "You know what? We're pointing out some things." And the guy who let him go was also getting pretty emotional because he invested a lot in it, and said, "I hope you come back." And so we let go of people sometimes, and there's that in mind, like work on this, get this right, and then consider coming back. Because a lot of times we just believe it's not the right time for them. They're not ready.
Okay. I'm going to bring up an opportunity that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about just yet. And you touched on you let someone go, they're not ready yet. And you're using that terminology in that way of thinking. And that's why I want to pick your brain on this. When was the first time that you had to fire someone or let someone go?
At Everclean?
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah. The very first location, actually the most memorable one, it was my partner's.
Okay. All right.
First location. Yeah.
How uncomfortable were you at that time to let them go?
It's a hard conversation. And there are two parts of me. I'm a business guy, so we're geared more than the average person to have difficult conversations.
Okay.
We just know it needs to be done. But then at the same time, there's a part where that's tough, man. It's I don't want to have it, but just realizing fit. It's not that you're wrong. It's fit. And the big issue for us is they're taking more of a recreational approach and handful of locations. I wanted to transform an industry.
There it is.
Right? Life, like they wanted a lifestyle business. I did not want a lifestyle business. I wanted a business where I can really throw myself into.
That was my point, and I wanted to bring it up because how you approach you letting people go and firing people. If you're trying to change the way the game is looked at in that industry, you can't go about firing people or letting go people, the previous, people in the industry or the top ones. You have to do it in more of a nurturing and letting them know why they're not ready yet.
Yeah.
But here's what you can do in the meantime. If you get yourself ready, then I'm going to keep that opportunity open for you. If you, that keep that door open. A lot of people, when they think they are let go from a job or in their career, they can't come back.
Yeah.
You have to keep that door open. That's how you're able to continue to keep your fingers on the pulse on what's needed in your communities rather than just, what's needed in your business. Community and business it needs to be together. you need to have your finger on the pulse and knowing what's happening. I love this. Keep going.
And to add to that, the guy who let him go actually gave him a couple names of places that he should go consider to work because he was aware, right? And so there's that relationship. Some of the hardest layoffs, I leave it open. If you want to talk about this some more, when you can calm down a little bit and wrap your head around it, reach out to me, let me know. And and so we try. We're not perfect, Chris, but we try.
No, you're a lot closer than a lot of companies that are major name companies that don't know how to do this properly. I've been around some people that they would ask me to fire people, and I would do it differently. It's just like I actually learned. It's funny how I learned this. I was watching a movie, and it was Moneyball with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like 2008, 2010-ish. I don't know, around that time frame. I love baseball, but I was watching this movie, and I watched him, and he was a general manager for, I can't remember the Oakland A's. Anyways, but he walked in, and I guess the person that his protege he was training, assistant GM, he was trying to fire him. He's like, you got to go fire him. You got to go tell him he's traded or tell him or whatever. And he was like, well, how would you do it? And he's like training Jonah Hill on how to fire someone or how to let him go. And he's like, well, based on this and this. And he was like, they don't want to hear that shit. They don't care. You just have to be like, listen, here's the name of the person you need to contact. Your service is only needed. You're a good ball player, but you got to go. I try to train, and this is where I was, kind of companies and corporations I was going in, and I had to make a lot of those decisions behind the scenes. They didn't know that came from me, and I was the one that was pulling the trigger, but I would prep HR on how to deal with them and prep them for that next step. So I would leverage HR. So here's your, we're going to have to let you go. Your vision, obviously what you've done here, we appreciate everything you've done for this company. We're trying to take a next leap in a different way of going about business. You're just not aligned to the vision overall. I'm not insinuating you can't come back one day, but as in for right now, your services are no longer needed. Here's the person for HR. Give them a piece of paper, number, go talk to them. And they would prep them on the next steps and maybe point them in the right direction. That way, I would train my staff not having an emotional conversation. Because once you have an emotional conversation about it, you're now making it open for them to have that kind of conversation that goes on forever. And I'm like, all right, you just got to cut the head off the snake and let them go. I'm not gonna. If you go up, I'm not gonna stab you to death and watch you bleed. I'm just gonna chop your head off, and you got to go do what you got to do. But I know that's probably sounds really awful for those who are listening to this, and we're like, damn, Chris is hardcore. No, it's all about community. It's all about trying to help them. And that's if you lead with that first, it's really going to, take your business to the next level. And I think that's where that rolls down, through your staff, not just on a manager level or an employee type of level, but that you're raising the morale, because if this morale's low, you can't now focus back onto your customers again and raising that. Right.
That's everything. If you look at our Google reviews and people give us positive reviews, what are they talking about? It's the people.
Yeah.
And if you want happiness and good service to spill over to the customers, it's got to be in-house too, right? And if you build that culture in-house, it'll trickle over into customer service. At least that's our approach.
You're highly well-spoken and a highly educated person as well. I think you have an MBA what school in Chicago?
University of Chicago.
Okay. As a
School of Business.
Got it. I know I read it somewhere and I couldn't remember the name of the school, and I put my pigeonhole myself real quick. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, because you come from engineering to real estate, gaining a lot of capital, gaining a little bit of liquid, right? And that allowed you to have the finances to seize an opportunity when you saw an opportunity from the engineering world. And I want to go back to the engineering mindset just real quick and how we look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because and not to talk about personal things, but you had something unfortunate happen that's probably the worst thing ever in the world that would ever happen to a married person with, a brand new dad. You unfortunately lost your daughter, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
And that was a really difficult situation. And we'll sprinkle this and we'll kind of lean into this, as much as I can and try not to get too personal with this, but there's a point that I want to bring up. When you were 9 months into the hospital and your mom having, I guess, 40 years of experience in the same hospital, and you were in that hospital and you got to experience, Mackenzie, smiling for the first time and going and even though it's a really difficult time, but there's two sides of every coin, right? You have to be grateful for the good and bad.
Right.
But there was something that would happen. I think it's an electrostatic cleaning thing.
That's right.
When you went through something really traumatic, but you would have never went through that if you didn't go through that situation, but you're ever take something even more positive out of it and even implement it into your business. Can you expand it on your comfortable level of talking about this? But I wanted to touch on this because if you didn't have that type of mindset on looking at things differently, then you wouldn't have seen the opportunity to even implement that and making it easy for your own business when you saw an opportunity.
Yeah. Mackenzie had 13 surgeries, and the hospital protocol was when she went to surgery, they would sterilize the room.
Yeah.
And I saw them using equipment that I'd never seen before to sterilize the hospital room. And just being a curious person and an engineer, I took pictures, started asking the janitorial staff all these questions, probably annoyed them, and
probably even annoyed Evelyn, your wife. Just like, shut the hell up.
Yeah. Evelyn gets to that place very often in our life. So and by the time he's even finished, I'm already on Google, like finding out all the background on this equipment.
We're so similar.
At the moment that's happening, I actually didn't know exactly what would I do with it. I was just curious. Well, COVID hits, and my mentor asked me, what can you do from a business perspective to do your part and to help the community? And immediately I thought of the sterilizing equipment. They weren't as popular back then as they are now. It's what they use on airplanes all over the place. Before, it was mostly just nursing homes, surgical rooms. And then he also told me, whatever it is, don't try to monetize it. Don't try to monetize on a pandemic.
That's good advice.
You can do this for the community, just do it. And I don't want to poo-poo any businesses that started during the pandemic. Their whole, for us, we're a car wash, and we thought if we can sterilize the insides of people's cars and make them feel confident to be able to get in their cars and bring their family in after they had some symptoms, maybe, that would be a great thing for us to offer that to the community. Even if we can only prevent a handful of COVID cases by doing that, like, it's worth it. So we ordered these. They are live at our sites. We do them 3 days a week, and we're just going in, spraying down people's cars who want it, and it kills coronavirus within 60 seconds, tuberculosis within 3 minutes, and plenty of other diseases as well, viruses, bacteria.
And thank you for going into detail on that, because you're 100% correct. And your mentor is is it a woman or a guy?
A guy.
Guy. Okay, I didn't want to say, it's a guy. Just assume, because there's a lot of women entrepreneurs out there. I've learned more from like women mentors, I guess you would say, as an entrepreneurship than I have in men. And I'm telling you, this decade is going to be the decade for women entrepreneurship. I'm telling you, mark my words. Mark my words.
I believe it.
It's the emotional intelligence side of it. They understand it more. So you touched on something, and your mentor brought up, hey, if you don't try to charge or don't try to monetize from this, just try to see how you can implement this. And the overall, it all goes back to your customers and goes to your community first. It is what's jumping out to me the most, is how I can increase them and make them feel safe, that, hey, even if you had symptoms and, hey, you did experience those, being sick, we're going to create the environment for you to feel safe, that, hey, our equipment and the people that we are here, we're conscious of that. I thought that was great. I thought that was phenomenal. Good stuff. Yeah.
And a lot of it for entrepreneurs, businessmen, it's a lot of times solving our own problems too.
Yeah.
Right. When I had some COVID-like symptoms, and I couldn't go to the hospital for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mackenzie was getting better and we were preparing to bring her home, I didn't feel comfortable bringing her in our car. And, I didn't have a way, like, what do I do to make it safe for me to bring her home? It's like, well, these sprayers, and if I'm having this problem, other people are too. So
and even if they're not aware of it, that's knowledge is king, right? I mean, knowledge is the best. Even like me being a father or me not being a father, if someone else knew a little bit of information that I wasn't aware of and it was potentially going to save my life or my family's life, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And we've had customers actually mention that, like, oh my gosh, I was sick and I didn't know what to do, and thank you so much. My goodness, we've won that customer over for life.
100%.
And they're tough. So it's not that we're not getting nothing out of it. Like, they're going and telling their
You're doing something different. You're doing something extra. What you're doing now is you're creating this standard for other people in the community, and they're viewing you as the person, like, hey, this guy's, he's been through this, he's been through that, but he took this from this type of unfortunate experience and learned it. But that's the engineered side of you. And it drives my family crazy, and it drives even the people that are around me. I'll say the most outrageous shit to people, and I drive people nuts because I'm not supposed to be thinking like this at a time like this. And I'm asking questions like, why is this important? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm going nuts over here because I'm wanting to know. Like, I'm curious. My mind, because Google, I'm telling you, man, is like my best friend sometimes. I'm like, because even when they're uncomfortable conversations, I'm like, well, I can't ask right now because I don't know them that well, and I'm curious. That's just the way that my mind works. I see so many opportunities, so I can't stop my mind from going. So
I'm with you. I've plenty of annoyed friends and family from the things I bring up.
Right, here we go. Yeah, like I'll go into a restaurant and I'll start asking questions like who is this? And especially like mom and pop places, like brick and mortar businesses, I ask a lot of questions. Even if I'm impressed, I'm going to ask questions. So I start asking, like, God, we can't take Chris anywhere, man. He's going to have a conversation with them for an hour. Then I'll get a business card. I was actually here in London. And, of course, here in London, just so for those listeners that aren't in London and they ever wanted to travel in London, if you love chicken wings, don't come, because there's only a couple places you can get actually a real good chicken wing. There's different types, right? So there's a food truck here, and it's called Orange Buffalo. And the founders are from England, but they went to the U.S. and it started off as a drunk story. They were out in New York, they were drinking, and they got the recipe of some chicken wings. Like, oh, let's start a food truck. And then I went there and I was like, wow, like, I don't drink. So I did get a root beer. The only bad part is the root beer was from Australia and they don't know what they're doing over there. So they didn't taste that well. So only bad thing and negative thing on the experience. But I ate the chicken wing and I was like, I went up to the food truck and was like, who made these? Like, where'd you get this recipe? Because it tastes like I'm in New York, right? Like, I love this. I was like, you have now. I was like, do you need investors? Like, this is where my mind goes. Like, do you need investors? I will hook you up. I got you.
Yep.
That comes with passion, right? Because I was like, I can't get good chicken wings. I might as well make sure you stick around in the marketplace for my own personal reasons.
Absolutely. That's the engineer and businessman coming out, and you can't turn it off, right? It's just a part of who we are.
I don't think that I'll ever be able to. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm trying to turn it off, because that's obviously what's assisted me, and I'm sure with you the same, of looking at things a little differently and cutting off some light years off my learning curve when it comes to business and adapting to the marketplace and adapting to the times and being adaptable to change overall. There's certain things that I'll pay attention to, and I'm like my fingers on a pulse. But if I'm not in the business enough to be able to understand the dynamics and the moving parts, then I can't reverse engineer it, because there's too many things moving around in the first place.
Right.
How, with, Everclean, what is your strategy on being able to expand where you are right now in the business world?
We are obviously trying to grow locations.
Okay.
But what we're investing in is in our actual platform. We're investing internally inside. So when I look at where has businesses failed, or where do they struggle to expand? I think it's most in your people.
Okay.
You could brute force a single store, just by force of personality to have the right kind of culture. But if I can't replicate that in a different state because we've systematized in some way culture, which sounds weird, but if we can't systematize that, then as soon as we go out of state, we're gonna
You're
be
dead in the
struggling.
water. Yeah, you're dead in the water.
Yeah. So we're developing systems as much as we can to replicate people and culture, so that we can succeed. The other things are still a challenge, but I think are more outsourceable. I can't outsource culture. I can outsource real estate development.
I love that. Say that again. Say that again. I want the listeners to hear that, because it's not what we say, right? It's what they hear and really take in. Say that again. Say that part again.
You can't outsource culture.
Damn.
You can outsource real estate development. You can outsource marketing even, right? But culture, there's no one who can do that for you. You got to do it yourself.
All right. And doing it yourself takes time and effort. And there's a personal feel to that, to develop that culture, because it's not something that just happens overnight. It takes sometimes years to develop that culture, and you understanding why it's essential for you to expand in the marketplace, or you expand in certain industries. How many states are you currently thinking about being in different regions? I mean, are there goals for you when it comes to your outreach, when it comes to your own personal brand? Well, that not personal brand, but as in business brand.
Yep. So we have 5 locations up and running here in Chicago, 3 that'll open later this year, and we'd like to, in my mind, we'd like to be 500 locations someday. Okay. And be nationwide. I just think the need is that great. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and frankly, there are plenty of new car washes that are opening up here and there, but customers frequently tell us there's not an experience similar to ours. So we'll keep growing.
So how can you duplicate that without losing that personal touch with the culture, do you think?
Yeah, that's the challenge before us. Okay. We try to embed our culture, every opportunity we have, into our training materials. So we try to make sure that, well, first of all, most of our guys are not super good at school. Right? Not surprising.
That's actually a beautiful part, that they're not, because what they're going to really need in that type of situation of growing a franchise or building their own business, it comes from being, I guess, having that emotional connection with people and understanding what's happening. But go ahead. I love this.
Yeah. So our training, we think about, how do you train someone who's smart, right? They're street smart, and they have good EQ, but man, they can't sit down with a textbook. All of our training is done in relationship.
Love it.
So it's I do, you watch. I do, you help. You do, I help. You do, I watch. And the last step is you teach.
So a lot of situational training.
Yes. And you cannot progress by yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to do it right? There has to be another person there. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's one of the best ways you can instill culture, because I think culture is more caught than taught.
Oh, I love it.
You can read about how to change a flat tire, but what you miss in watching a YouTube video of that is the gusto with which someone did that when it was raining, and the attitude they have, which is the thing that's going to stay with you for every tire change for the rest of your life if you watch that. Mm-hmm. Right? So for us, how do we create a situation where you can catch culture? And that's relationally, right, in the training.
Right. Okay. I like that. Let me go back to something else you said, and not to poke holes. I'm not poking holes in a bad way. I'm poking holes.
Please do.
The street smart. You touched on that twice before I got the chance to bring it and go back up. And I love the way this conversation just naturally just went there, because I want to touch on this real quick. You touched on street smarts. I believe that if people have a little bit more of street smarts in that type of industry and that type of business model, especially right now in the decade and the era of business we're in right now, because it's all about how you make someone feel rather than just info dropping or data dropping of something XYZ. Anyone could hand your clientele a piece of paper at the beginning of this, Thomas, said, okay, what fragrance would you like to have? This is the program. This is the cost. You get a member so you can come this. Anyone can hand something like that to you. But if you have someone that has a lot of street smarts and you is using their emotional intelligence to really develop on a relationship and explaining why this is the process, here's what we're going to do, and any questions, comments, concerns you might have during your experience, I want you to bring it up to me on how we can improve or how can we reach more customers just like you. So touch on that street smart, why that's so important for you to even being conscious of the people that you do have aboard your staff. Love this.
Yeah. We're looking for people, not that we can just program with information. Right? We want people to exercise. So we do have this curriculum, but we want people to exercise their own native genius and have an ability to critically think and apply our principles and culture in different situations. So yes, you know how to pitch, and you know word for word all the content in this sales script, but exactly what you're saying, then what do you do with that? And can you talk to a customer? And that is really what we're looking for in our guys. Now, that street smarts can be applied in different ways. Some of our guys, so we have 3 different tracks. This is fairly new that we're developing. We have a sales genius, we have a technical genius, and a management genius.
I like some guys.
Yeah. So we have some guys who are really good in sales context. We have other guys who not so good, in sales context, but you put a wrench in their hand and oh my goodness, all of a sudden you feel like this guy's really smart. In the sales situation, you felt like he was not so smart, right? But so we're trying to identify that. It is important that somebody has that for this role, because if they don't have that here, they should be somewhere else applying whatever it is that they have.
Yeah. It's understanding you have to understand your staff and where people are good at and where they're not good at. It sounds like you're really starting to identify that and shedding and getting and start pulling on those threads to really start identifying some areas of opportunity. And I think with your engineering mind, I think you're going to explode with this, just understanding that within your own staff. You touched on and this is what I train, especially when it comes to sales. People go, well, you're, award-winning sales training. How did you get to, education sales, and how did you do this? I'm like, well, I really didn't sell. Pitch. You mentioned pitch a couple of times. Pitch. If you learn how to sell the right way, when you hear customers say this to you, what's the next step? How do I go about getting this, or how do I do this? That's when you got them already wrapped, and you don't have to pitch them. Right. You should never try to pitch anyone. You should say, based on what you brought your car here, and you have your alloy wheels, and you have chrome, you have this, and you were trying to get them in, just to kind of make, if I was the guy, I would say, based on the way that I'm looking at your car and what you're trying to get from this car wash, as in durability, or of you coming back next week or whatever, here's what I would recommend from this package. Right. And they would go, you're right, because you're the genius and you're the expert in this area. But you have to develop that credibility, and you using your street smarts and emotional intelligence to know when to turn it on and turn it off, for them to give off the impression to them, I've been here before. I know what kind of car that is. I know what you need. I know what you're trying to accomplish in your first date. I get it. Let's make sure the back seat's really clean and the car fragrance. You know what I mean? Everything else. Here's what I recommend. And they're going to go with that recommendation. But if you hand them a piece of paper, Thomas, they'll go, I don't know. Maybe they don't want to pick the most expensive one because they don't see the value. They'll go, I don't want to pick the middle one. I'll pick this one just because it's a little bit more than the normal one. I'll do this one.
And in this industry, the bar is so low for providing good education and recommendations that all we know of is clear coat, triple foam, lava body, carnival wax, Rain-X, DuraShield, super, and nobody knows what anything means.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and we've all heard it though. So how gimmicky is that guys like you and me and a lot of listeners, we're sharp people who know how to operate a pocket computer, but we don't know what any of these car wash terms mean. It's been a terrible way to sell, and really we're not educating people. The stuff is not that hard they can understand. So we don't use any of those terms in our car wash.
You know my biggest pet peeve is about car washes? Okay.
Yeah. Please.
Is that you would make it look a certain way and everything else, right? They don't tell you, and I would tell people this. Listen, do not roll your windows down for the next hour.
Right. Yes.
You should have just make sure that people understand, because what's going to happen is this. They're going to drive right off the lot and they're going to roll down the window. Right. Now you just messed up your whole window for the whole car wash, or the whole, I don't know, 2 weeks, because you're never going to get it back, because that stain does not go away that, it dries.
Chris, I'm stealing that. So I just wrote it down, because we don't tell that to people, and we should.
Tell them.
And even myself, right, being in this space, I make that mistake, right? And I just, I'll go to the drive-through or whatever, and I pull it down, and oh my goodness. And I love it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. That's just always from my experience of years of doing it, before I graduated high school, because it was like kind of like a seasonal thing when I would go work at a car wash, just like weekends and whatnot, because there's nothing worse than having your car immaculate, the way it needs to feel, whatever. And then you roll down your window by accident and you're like, and you can't, it does something to your window, because it's all that water's inside of the door or inside of the track, and it messes you up.
What I will say is slightly different about our model, why some of our members might not feel that way as much, is because they are on a subscription unlimited plan.
Okay.
Taking one car wash and drawing it out and maximizing that for as long as they can is less of a thing. So our people are coming in to get the car washed even during the rain sometimes, on a cloudy day when they know the snow.
I'm sure things have changed. Yeah, I'm sure things have changed. And like, I don't even, how old am I? 30, about to turn 40, 39. So, I mean, I was 15. So God knows how long, right? So what you do the math, guys. So 25 years ago, if I haven't figured it out by then. So I'm sure things have evolved with windows and, and rolling down things, but that'd be a nice little touch.
It's still an issue. It still is. Yeah. So I wrote it down.
Yeah, so like a nice little a little end of it, and like, hey, by the way, what did I tell you at the beginning of it? Don't roll your windows down for the next hour. I love it. Or they do the windows and they leave these big streaks somewhere.
Yeah,
like I still have a vivid memory when I was a kid. My dad would wash a car, and I would be back in you touch the windows, you might as well just stab my father with a knife or something. I mean, I've gotten yelled at more than anything else in touching windows. My dad told me, he goes, when you finally get a car or, whatever, I'm going to tell your children. And when you have children, make sure you're touching the windows and you put in this on that.
So Chris, how long does that last for?
What?
That attitude of your dad wanting you not to touch anything and kind of the showroom condition,
forever
perspective.
Forever.
Like, they're always like, was your dad always like that, or after several days, were those the rules for the car all the time?
That was rules for the car. That was rules for cars. Why are you touching the window?
That's awesome.
You can point outside and not touch the window. Why are you touching the window? What is the point of touching? I can go on a whole pitch. I can go on a whole conversation about the window, because I've heard it. What's the whole point of you touching a window? I can't look out there. Hey, Dad, look over there. You're touching the window. What is the point of you touching a window? Or when it rains, I would be a kid, taking my finger and going down, with the raindrop.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a stupid kid. I wouldn't say stupid kid, but I would get yelled at for the funniest things in the world.
Yeah.
I guess it's the only thing that you're going to yell at me about. I guess I'm a good kid, right? But I mean, the cleanliness of car, you learn a lot about someone also by what's in their car and what's not in their car as well.
You really do. And I think you get in and you see, you can actually imagine how their day-to-day is, how they kind of live, right? Mm-hmm. Just by what's in the car and what's not and how they keep it. And based on how their car is, you might be able to guess how their home is, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. You don't think, I'll put it this, you don't think that men don't pay attention to women's cars? Like, I know when I was dating at one point and I would get in someone's car, I'm like, whoa, you live like this? Yeah, don't think we're going to get past the second date, like, I don't think so. This is what the house is going to look like inside. I mean, man, I'm going to spend a lot of money on cleaners. That's for sure. Cooking and cleaning, but you're using your emotional time. People listening to this, I'm like, man, Chris is awful. Like,
and that's when you use your very tactful firing skills.
100%. Right, 100%. You got to adapt to the marketplace for sure. Like, have you thought about have you been approached, and I'm sure you have, from some investors, like looking into try to make you expand faster? Because I get this a lot in entrepreneurship, when even myself included, when I'm building something out, and then other entrepreneurs, they look at that as an opportunity or investing opportunity for them. Mm-hmm. What is your thought process on maybe potentially having an investor come in? Are you turned off on that, or maybe just are you open to something like that?
So we do have investors right now.
Okay.
One of the nice things, at least so far, has been, just because this isn't my first rodeo, I've been able to be very picky about our investors and make sure our investors are values and vision aligned. Not just on the business model, but on values. And so I look for a track record of investors who've been highly philanthropic. And if you've given money towards causes you believe in, not that we are a charity, but that tells me you care about the vision of what we're trying to do socially as well.
So for those who are in South Carolina right now and you're listening to this, and if you see one of these kind of companies pop up car washes around your area, it might have been a good indication that I'm like, hey, Thomas, I'm going to invest into one of these just to bring it down to Charleston. So when I go to visit South Carolina, when I go back home to visit, then I at least have someone that can go to a car wash. Because I'm telling you, that was one of the things that I wanted to do for myself. Was the first car wash, first place I ever went to. I was also going to buy it out, but it's like there's nothing in it. It's like a rundown like shack, and I don't even. There's probably crackheads living in there. But maybe I can just tear it down. But just kind of like one of those things for myself. That was my first job. I bought this thing, but it was like there's nothing there. So might be an opportunity. So for the most, I know that we've covered a lot, and I know this probably conversation for those that are listening to this, and I appreciate every single last one of you. Make sure you're submitting your feedback in, and I would love to have you on as a Q&A. I've been kind of neglecting those lately just because of what I've been building with WINJECT Studios, and getting that kind of off the ground and making sure we're doing beta testing. What do you have currently going on right now for maybe our listeners to find more about your business, obviously what you're doing, you personally? Like, how would you kind of like frame that and kind of like maybe just explain that to the listeners on maybe pointing them in the right direction so that way they don't get lost on Google?
Yeah. So we're as a mainly membership model. We maybe I'll frame it this way. They're kind of three. If you're listening, there might be sort of 3 points of interest. One is if you're interested in what we're doing as a consumer. We have we're mainly a membership model. What we're trying to do is have drivers imagine their car always clean, and no more of the car mostly being dirty. You get a car wash a few times a year and just try to stretch it out. It's just, let's just change the whole MO and just have your car always clean. And so we have thousands of members who find value in that. We have an online special where your first month is $1, and you get to experience that. Unlimited washes for $1, and you can just taste what that's like. If you're in the Chicago area,
that's nuts, man. I mean, like that's a hell of a value. Go ahead.
Yeah, we just want people to taste what that experience is like, because once I started tasting a car that was always shining, and I just did not need to worry about keeping the car clean and making it convenient for someone to do that. Right, 100%. People come in and out within 3 minutes at our location. Second would be, if you're listening to this and you're interested more from a career opportunity, you can go online to evercleancw.com, and you can click on careers. You'll learn a little bit about our growth trajectory and what you can expect. You can apply to a particular location right there. And third, if you're listening and you happen to be an investor and you feel like, hey, this is something I believe in, both the business model and the social mission, you can also reach out to us through our website, and we will be raising an expansion round of capital in the spring. So those are 3 ways that you can kind of connect with us.
I like the last one, especially because there's maybe just and you could take this as fine if you think this is a good idea. Like, you know how you have a lot of companies that maybe don't have the education and don't have the training that you guys have obviously expanding on and changing the way that people are looking at those, like, as in personal development and in really helping your people. You could probably end up getting investors and buying out certain companies that you're like that's like a sister company underneath your umbrella where you're really expanding. And that might be a huge area of opportunity, not where you have to do all the small things, but you probably already have thought of this. I can't stop my mind. This is why my mind doesn't help.
I love that you go there. So yeah, to us, Everclean is a human resources company that just happens to wash cars.
Love it.
Right? We wash cars now, but our genius is not in the car washing segment. To us, it can be applied anywhere.
Love it.
And we have hopes to bring that there as well.
You can do it in so many different things. You can do it dry cleaning. You can do it anything we're cleaning. This is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is amazing.
Our guys, we have very few people who work here who are actually specifically interested in car washing. They love the company, right? They love what we do. I mean, car washing.
That's how you're changing the game. That's how you're changing the game. They're not just trying to wash cars.
Right.
They're learning how to transform themselves into something special. You at the very beginning of this, you mentioned identifying their talent, and sometimes they're not able to can see what their true potential is. You're pulling. That's where the best mentors, and that comes from your upbringing as well, and people being around you, being on a Tutelage. When you look at an opportunity or you look at an individual, you don't look at them on where they currently are. I don't either. I look at them on who they could be one day.
Yeah. And I think when people think about careers, a lot of time there's too much focus on the industry.
Yeah.
And they decide where to go based on industry. I actually think the minority of people are really have an obsession or a passion with one specific industry. I think most people are pretty open to working at the right place in the right type of role, and that could be any type of industry. And that's the case for most of our guys.
I love it. I love that. First and foremost, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show. Beyond me on a lot of different areas of opportunity before I even thought about, hey, he would be a phenomenal guest. But I hope the listeners really caught on to the method behind Thomas's madness. Because it's, there's only, but I love that because there's not a lot of, I guess you would say entrepreneurs that do have that personal touch to them and being adaptable to change and making the proper adjustments. They just say they are, and their staff doesn't really reflect the result. So I love it, man.
Well, thank you, Chris. I probably should say at the same time that there are things that are super messy about that, and striving for a social mission and being so relational in what we do. But to me, it's worth it. It's worth that challenge. If I'm going to labor and toil in something, I want it to be something one of the challenges I give to the guys is when you can integrate who you are with what you do towards something you believe in alongside the people you love, you'll probably find some happiness there.
Wow.
And that's what we're doing.
You should put that on a t-shirt if you haven't done it. That's powerful. That's powerful because I feel that. I mean, I think you have to be aligned to those values, those core values, to understand what that truly means. And you will find happiness if you're going about your day-to-day operations or just living your life, as in a whole and trying to put all those pieces of a puzzle together. great advice, man. I appreciate coming on again. Guys,
thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And God bless you, your family, your wife, and especially what you've been through. And I know that we'll always be in contact just from brief conversations that we've had, but not just, okay, yeah, mine have not been that great or that long, like as in we've known each other for years. But I know this relationship, I'm looking forward to build on this relationship for a lifetime, man. You're a great person.
Likewise, Chris, really, really looking forward to what's ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, y'all be well, be safe, be you. Hope you enjoyed today's phenomenal information, like info dump pretty much on customer service. So many areas of opportunity for you guys to like really take something and bottle it up and catch lightning in a bottle. But other than that, guys, y'all be well, be safe, be you. Peace out. Y'all take care. Thank you again, Thomas.
Thank you, Chris.